right, so today we're diving deep into Neverland, into the world of Peter Pan.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have so many great questions from listeners
Yeah.
about this really iconic character.
Mm.
Why he's famous all over the world,
Mm.
which book is like the book,
Yeah.
how the stories differ, which movies really capture the magic.
Right.
And plus, everyone's hoping for some little hidden gems in there.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are ready. We've got stacks of Peter Pan novels, film analyses,
Right.
and even cultural commentary.
That's awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And to help us navigate all this,
Yeah.
we have our expert here, who I know
Thank you.
can connect the dots and bring those deeper insights to life.
I'll do my best. It is fascinating to see how a character who's over a century old still captures our imaginations.
It really is. And, I think a lot of people might be surprised to hear that Peter Pan and Wendy
Right.
wasn't even the first time J.M. Barrie wrote about Peter.
Exactly. Peter Pan actually made his debut in an earlier book called The Little White Bird back in 1902.
Oh, wow. So was he already flying around Neverland?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
In The Little White Bird, Peter's a baby, and he flies away to Kensington Gardens
Oh.
and lives with the fairies.
That's cute.
Yeah. It wasn't until a few years later that Barrie turned this into the play we know and love, which premiered in 1904.
Okay.
And then Peter Pan and Wendy, the novel that came out in 1911, expanded on that play's success.
Oh, wow. Okay, so from a fairy-loving baby in London
Yeah.
to the leader of the Lost Boys in Neverland.
Exactly.
Wow. And speaking of those Lost Boys,
Mm-hmm.
that whole concept, kids who fall out of their prams and end up in this magical world,
I know.
it's just captivating.
Yeah.
But reading through the source material, there are also these darker undertones, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Barrie doesn't shy away from the shadows of Neverland at all. For instance, Peter doesn't let the Lost Boys grow up.
Oh, right.
Like he thins them out,
Yeah.
as the book says, when they start to get too old.
Yeah, I remember that. And that's a chilling thought. Like, Neverland might be magical and exciting,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also pretty brutal.
It is.
And then you had Captain Hook and the pirates, and
Oh, yeah.
it's just this constant sense of danger, isn't it?
It certainly is. And that contrast is part of what makes Neverland so compelling. It's a place where anything is possible, but also where childhood innocence collides with like the realities of life and death.
It's like a magnified reflection of childhood itself.
Yeah.
All the joys and the fears
Absolutely.
all blown up, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of these delicate balances,
Mm-hmm.
belief seems like a really crucial part of the Peter Pan universe. Like, believing in fairies is almost a life force for them.
It's true. Remember when Tinkerbell almost fades away when the kids stop believing? Yeah. That's a key theme, the connection between a child's belief and the existence of fairies.
Right. And it's a powerful metaphor, I think, for the power of imagination and
Mm.
how it shapes our realities.
I think so, too.
I think that's a big part of why Peter Pan continues to resonate with adults, too. Because
Mhm.
we all have that little piece of us
Yeah,
that wants to hold on to that sense of wonder, that belief in the impossible.
precisely. Peter Pan reminds us that there's still magic in the world, even when we grow up.
Right. And speaking of growing up, that leads us to Peter Pan and Scarlet,
Yes.
the official sequel,
Yes.
written by Geraldine McCaughrean,
Ah.
decades after Barrie's original.
Yeah.
And this one takes holding on to youth to a whole other level.
I know. It's set years later, and the darling children are adults now.
Right.
But they're drawn back to Neverland because things have gone wrong.
Oh,
And they regain their youth by wearing their children's clothes.
what? That's so interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So it's
I
like literally stepping back into your childhood to recapture the youthful energy.
Exactly.
I love that. But I'm curious, does Peter Pan in Scarlet shy away from that darker side of Neverland that we saw in Barrie's book?
Not at all. In fact, some might say it dives even deeper into the complexities and consequences of choices you make in Neverland.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Both books offer these little glimpses into Peter's darker side and the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of this magical world.
Wow, that makes me want to dive into Peter Pan and Scarlet right now.
Me too.
But before we do, I want to go back to those darker elements that we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
We have Captain Hook and his pirates.
Of course, yeah.
But even beyond that, there's this sense of casual violence among the children themselves.
You're right.
And Peter himself isn't always this heroic figure, is he?
You're right. Especially in Peter Pan and Scarlet, he comes across as much more capricious and even cruel at times. It's like he can't grow up.
Yeah.
But that also stops him from developing empathy and compassion.
Right. Like he's stuck in this perpetual state of childhood egotism
Exactly.
and can't really grasp the weight of his actions.
Yeah. And that actually brings up an interesting question. How do we interpret Peter Pan? Is he truly this symbol of eternal youth and freedom? Or is there like a more unsettling side to him?
Right. He's both captivating and troubling.
Yeah.
He embodies this yearning for a carefree existence,
Mm-hmm.
but he also reminds us that true growth comes with responsibility
Absolutely.
and understanding consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this refusal to grow up is both the source of his charm and the root of his more troubling qualities.
I agree.
Yeah, it's this
Yeah.
fascinating paradox.
It is. And it's part of what makes him such an enduring character, right? In literature and popular culture.
It is.
He embodies those universal desires for freedom and adventure,
Mm-hmm.
but he also makes us think about the shadow side of those desires.
Right, and that's why I think we see so many different interpretations of Peter Pan.
Oh, absolutely.
He's this malleable character
Mhm.
who can fit different perspectives and themes, you know?
Yeah, think about all the film adaptations, right?
Yeah.
Like they all have different takes on him, and they
Yeah.
all reflect, the values
Yeah.
and anxieties of when they were made.
Absolutely.
You have the Disney animated classic, which
Yeah.
focuses on the magic and adventure.
Yeah.
Then you have like darker,
Yeah.
more psychological versions like Hook
Yeah. Right.
or Pan.
Right.
And then you have, tons of live action versions, each with their own little spin.
Right. And it's just amazing how one character can inspire so many different interpretations.
It is.
But I think, it just speaks to the power of Barrie's original story
Absolutely.
because he tapped into something that's really, really universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That longing for a world without limits,
Mm.
where your imagination reigns supreme.
It's true. And those themes are still just as relevant today. I mean, Neverland provides this escape from adult life, from all the pressure.
Yeah.
Gives us this glimpse of a world where anything is possible.
It really does. And it's that pure possibility that makes Neverland so seductive, right?
It does.
Not just for the characters,
Yeah.
but for us too,
Yeah.
as readers and viewers.
It's true.
But Peter Pan in Scarlet
Yeah.
reminds us that even Neverland has its consequences, right?
Yeah. It's
Like those adult darling children come back and they find out that their past choices
Yeah.
have had this really lasting impact on this magical world.
right. It adds this whole layer of depth to the story, doesn't it?
It does.
Because it forces them to confront what happens because of the choices they made and
Right.
the bittersweet reality of growing up.
So it's not just this carefree playground. It's like
Yeah.
there's this sense of responsibility that comes with being in Neverland.
Yeah.
Even if it's disguised as eternal childhood. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That makes me even more curious to read it.
Me too.
But before we get too far away from the original, I do want to go back to the source material.
Okay.
We talked about, the darker parts of Peter's character.
Yeah.
But what are some of the more positive things about him that make him so compelling?
Well, even with all his flaws,
Yeah.
Peter Pan is incredibly brave
Mm-hmm.
and resourceful. He always stands up to Captain Hook
Yeah.
and defends the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
He's a natural leader, right?
He is.
He inspires others to embrace their imaginations
Yeah.
and fight for what they believe in.
And he has this infectious sense of fun,
Yeah.
adventure,
Yeah.
He's always looking for new experiences.
And encouraging others to do the same.
Yeah, it's no wonder all the Lost Boys are drawn to him.
Right.
And it's not just them,
Yeah.
Like Wendy and her brothers are totally captivated by him too. He's everything they crave. Freedom, excitement,
Yeah.
a world without rules.
I think that's what makes him so universally appealing. He embodies that spirit of childlike wonder
Yeah.
that we all long for even as we get older.
Exactly. Peter Pan reminds us to never lose sight of the magic, even as we navigate, all the complicated stuff of being an adult.
It's true. And that brings us back to this question of why Peter Pan is still such a global phenomenon.
Right.
Like, what is it about this story
Mm-hmm.
that transcends cultures and keeps appealing to new generations?
Well, it's a lot of things, right? You
Yeah.
have these timeless themes of childhood, of growing up, the
Mhm.
loss of innocence, which everyone can relate to, you know?
Right. It doesn't matter what your background is.
Right. We all experience those changes in our own ways.
Yeah, and Neverland is this escape
It is.
from all the pressures and responsibilities of the adult world.
Yeah.
It's like this place where we can reconnect with that carefree spirit
Yes.
that we might have, you know, lost along the way.
Absolutely. And Peter Pan himself is such a compelling character, isn't he?
That's good.
He's flawed, he's complex,
Yeah.
but he's also incredibly charismatic and engaging.
He is.
And he represents this like primal desire for freedom and expressing yourself,
Yeah.
which speaks to people across all cultures, I think.
Absolutely. And plus he's just so visually iconic.
Oh, he is.
The
Yeah.
green tights, the feathered cap,
Yeah.
that mischievous grin.
Yeah.
Like, he's instantly recognizable.
He is
Even if you haven't read the book or seen the movies.
Yeah, and his visual imagery is so striking
It is.
and memorable
Yeah.
that it's really contributed to his popularity.
It really has. So it seems like Peter Pan's enduring appeal
Mhm.
is this mix of relatable themes,
Mhm.
escapist fantasy,
Mhm.
and a captivating central character
Right.
who embodies both the joys
Yeah.
and the struggles of growing up.
You said it perfectly, and that's what makes him so fascinating to explore. He's a mirror to our own, complex relationship with childhood,
Yeah.
with adulthood, with trying to find that perfect balance between responsibility and freedom.
It's true. I'm so glad we dove into this together. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for how deep and complex Peter Pan's world is.
Me too.
Yeah.
This has been a really insightful journey.
It has. Now, for those of you listening, here's a question to think about. If you had the chance to visit Neverland,
Mm-hmm.
would you choose to stay there forever,
No.
or would you eventually want to come back to the world of grown-ups?
That's a good question.
It is, and it's a question that really gets to the heart of what Peter Pan represents
Mhm.
and what he teaches us about ourselves. It really does make you think, doesn't it?
It does.
About whether you would stay in Neverland or come back to the real world.
Yeah,
Makes you think about what appeals to you about both, I guess.
it does. And I think maybe the answer changes depending on where you are in your life.
Right.
Like sometimes that idea of escaping,
Yeah.
escaping responsibility, escaping, the weight of the world,
Yeah.
that pull of Neverland feels really strong.
It does.
But then sometimes you kind of crave the depth that comes with growing up, with having meaningful relationships,
Yeah.
being part of something bigger.
Right. It's that push and pull between freedom and responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think Peter Pan really, really captures that, doesn't he?
He does. He really does.
That joy and also the limitations of never growing up.
Exactly. And that tension makes him so interesting to analyze. He's a walking contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
He's charming and mischievous,
Yeah.
but he's also capable of being really cruel.
Right.
He's brave and resourceful,
Yeah.
but also immature and
Yeah.
self-centered.
Right. Like he's frozen in time,
Yeah.
caught between the wonder of childhood and the selfishness.
Yeah. And I think that's why he still speaks to us even as adults.
Yeah.
We see those conflicting impulses in ourselves.
Yeah, we do. We all have that inner child,
Mm-hmm.
that wants adventure and freedom from rules.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have that grown-up side
Mhm.
that understands responsibility and empathy and
Yeah.
giving back to the world. And I guess the key is finding that balance between those two.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's not about denying our inner child or trying to go back to some lost innocence.
Right.
It's about taking those childlike qualities, the wonder, the creativity, the playfulness,
Yeah.
and bringing them into our adult lives.
How do we do that? How do we bring a little bit of Neverland into our everyday world?
Well, I think it starts with being curious.
Mm.
and being open to new experiences. It's about finding joy in the little things
Yeah.
and making time for things that spark our imaginations.
Yeah.
Things that remind us of what it was like to see the world through a child's eyes.
So maybe it's not about literally flying off to Neverland,
Right.
but finding those little moments of magic and
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah.
in our own lives.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about remembering to play, to explore, to ask questions, to dream. And it's about remembering that even though we've grown up, we
Wow.
can still believe in the power of our imaginations.
I love that. And I think this deep dive into Peter Pan, it's given us so much more than just understanding a literary character.
Yes.
It's made us think about our own relationship with childhood, with being adults,
Yep.
with trying to find that balance
Yeah.
between, responsibility and freedom.
It's true. This has been a really, really enriching exploration.
It has been. And for you listening, we hope this deep dive has made you think
Yeah.
about what Peter Pan means to you
Yeah.
and how his story still resonates in your life. So keep exploring, keep wondering,
Yeah.
and never stop believing in the power of your own imagination.
Here.
Until next time, may your adventures be filled with magic and wonder.